Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Lindsay Rohr, and I'm the faculty co-advisor for the new Delta chapter of Phi Alpha at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. I've served in this role since the fall of 2018 when I joined the faculty here. And our chapter utilizes a co-advisor model, and I found that it's really a nice way to share responsibilities and ensure that a faculty advisor is always available to our student members. I mean, as we all know, things come up, like faculty go on medical leave or go on sabbatical or out at a conference. And with the co-advisor model, I found that there's always one of the two of us is here and available to answer our student member questions. I want to apologize for not being on today's Zoom with everyone, but I am currently en route to Orlando for a meeting that begins tomorrow. The only bad thing I could say about living in Little Rock is that our direct flight options are severely limited, so getting near either coast usually takes about a full day of travel and at least 2 flights. So that is what I'm doing on this Wednesday. But today I wanted to spend some time to talk to you about 2 things. The first will be the induction ceremony that we do here at the new Delta chapter every May, and the other is about a recent service project that our chapter did thanks to a chapter support grant from the Phi Alpha National Office. If you have any questions after my presentation, I've included my email address and my office phone number, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So the first thing I'm going to cover is our induction ceremony. So thinking back about the history of our chapter's induction ceremonies is that there's a clear distinction between what we did before the COVID-19 pandemic and what we're doing currently. As I'm sure for like a lot of us, the pandemic changed how we do a lot of things. So prior to COVID-19, our induction was always held on the last Thursday in April, usually in the evenings around 6 p.m., and it was in an auditorium on campus. And then after the induction, we would have like teas, cookies, brownies afterwards. When the pandemic hit, the year it hit in April of 2020, we actually had to cancel our induction ceremony, as I'm sure a lot of chapters did. And given the fact that we were pushed online, in late March, our induction ceremony was scheduled in person that April. We didn't have a whole lot of time to pivot, and it was just such a difficult time for everyone. So what we ended up doing is we just did a virtual event on Zoom a little later, like towards the summer in 2020. Again, in May of 2020, our School of Social Work at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock was still virtual. We were 100% virtual in academic year 2020-2021. So again, our induction ceremony ended up being virtual in 2021 as well. In May of 2022, when we were finally back on campus and able to have an in-person induction ceremony, we went back and we sent out email invitations to folks who were inducted in 2020 and folks who were inducted in 2021 because we felt bad. Like the 2020 and 2021 cohort, they lost their chance at an in-person Phi Alpha induction ceremony because of the pandemic, and we wanted to give them the chance to experience an induction in person. So we invited them back to participate in the May 2022 in-person ceremony. Like, even though they had technically already been inducted, we still wanted them to have the chance to go through the whole ceremony in front of their friends and family, surrounded by their classmates and faculty, and to really not have to miss out on that full experience. So beginning in the 2021-22 school year, when we were back on campus, we changed things up a little bit. So pre-pandemic, as I mentioned, our induction was held in April in an auditorium on campus. But what we ended up doing in May of 2022 is we ended up combining our Phi Alpha induction ceremony with our School of Social Work's convocation ceremony. So it became two ceremonies in one. As I'll talk about here shortly, that really has a lot of benefits, which I'll go over. And I think it just makes it like a very special day, especially for our students who are being inducted into Phi Alpha and who happen to be graduating. So let me talk a little bit about that ceremony. So our current induction ceremony, the way it is now and the way it's been since the 21-22 academic year, is it's usually held mid-May. It's in the afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. in our university's theater. It starts out with a welcome and induction by our School of Social Work director. Then there's a speech. Previously, it's been by our Associate Vice Chancellor, who also happens to be a social work faculty member. Then we dive into the Phi Alpha induction ceremony piece. So that's right towards the beginning of the whole ceremony. And we follow the standard Phi Alpha induction ceremony template and protocol. After we do the Phi Alpha induction ceremony piece, then we move directly into the School of Social Work's convocation ceremony. So with this, our BSW graduates are called on stage, and they're in their full regalia, like caps, gowns, honors cords, everything. Our BSW graduates come up on stage, we give them certificates, and then we move into the MSW graduate piece, where our MSW students get hooded by faculty members. Then we have a closing poem. In the past, the poem has been Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson, and one of our MSW faculty members started this tradition and typically reads the poem to everybody. Then we have an opportunity for photos. We also occasionally will have a balloon arch out there where students can take photos under the arch with their friends and family. And then we have a reception back over in the School of Social Work where there's cookies and punch and lemonade. And recently this past year, our Social Work Community Advisory Board has sponsored our reception, and they give a couple remarks during the reception as well. So by combining the induction ceremony with the School of Social Work's convocation ceremony, it's, like I said, really special for the students who are getting inducted and graduating, either with their BSW and MSW, because they get to celebrate both things at once with their family. And for students who just happen to be getting inducted to Phi Alpha, so for example, maybe they're a BSW junior, or maybe they're a first-year MSW student, so they're not quite at graduation yet, they still get to come, experience the whole ceremony, get inducted to Phi Alpha, and then it helps get them excited about graduation and keeps them motivated because they see their peers and the folks in cohorts ahead of them, getting their BSW certificates or getting their MSW hoods, and it really builds that excitement. So planning our combined induction convocation ceremony. So within our School of Social Work, we have a convocation planning committee. It typically consists of about 5 faculty members every year, and at least one of those 5 faculty members is one of the Phi Alpha co-advisors. So it's either myself or my current co-advisor, Morgan, who serves on the convocation planning committee. That way we make sure that the planning committee doesn't forget about any important Phi Alpha induction details that need to be thought out, and to make sure that those happen. The committee, usually it's pretty quiet in the fall semester, not a whole lot to be done, but usually in March, the heavy lifting begins. Because it's such a big ceremony and we have a lot of students in our BSW and MSW programs, we require RSVPs. So even if you're coming for just the Phi Alpha induction ceremony and you don't happen to be graduating, you still have to RSVP. Everyone RSVPs, and you need to say roughly how many family members you're going to have in attendance so we can make sure that the theater is going to have enough seats and that we keep that in control, and so we know how much to have at the reception. And since we combine induction with convocation, all School of Social Work faculty is required to attend. So in past years before COVID, when we did the Phi Alpha induction ceremony like on its own on that like last Thursday in April, with our school, what I noticed when we did that is that getting faculty attendance at the Phi Alpha induction ceremony was kind of hard. Of course, the co-advisors would be there, but getting other faculty to come up to campus on a Thursday evening to participate in the Phi Alpha induction ceremony was challenging. But now, since the Phi Alpha induction is combined with the School of Social Work convocation, faculty attendance is required. The entire faculty has to be there, and not only do we all have to be there, faculty have to be in full commencement regalia, so it looks very professional, and I think it creates a very exciting atmosphere for our students and the families to have all of the faculty who've taught them over the last couple years present and dressed up in their regalia. I think it really adds to the experience. So, some pros and cons of our current model that combines Phi Alpha induction and School of Social Work convocation. It saves money. This is really great because our chapter collects minimal dues. In fact, we did not even start collecting chapter dues until last spring. So until like March of 2025 was the first time we started collecting chapter dues. And with that, our chapter's dues are only $5. So we really try to keep the expense down for our students. And we're able to do this in part because of this combined model, because now that we're inducting Phi Alpha students at the School of Social Work convocation, the School of Social Work has funds, and so does our Community Advisory Board, to pay for that reception. So it's no longer on our chapter of Phi Alpha to get money to rent the university theater. We no longer have to get money for the cookies and punch that we serve after, because we're able to use the cookies and punch and rental fees that are provided by the School of Social Work and the Community Advisory Board. Another pro is that students have family in town because graduation, the big university graduation, is the next day. And this has really been useful for our online students who don't live in the area. Sorry about my phone there. So at our institution, we get students who commute from all over Arkansas to either come to in-person classes or to do our online BSW or MSW program. So back when Phi Alpha induction was in April, at the end of April, and convocation was in mid-May, this would mean 2 trips to Little Rock for our students who don't live in the area. And it also made it really difficult for their family and friends to commute from wherever they lived across the state or even out of state multiple times into Little Rock. So what they're able to do now is typically our students who live several hours away or their family, they'll come into Little Rock on the day of the combined induction convocation ceremony, experience that on that Friday, And then the next day, that Saturday, is the big university commencement. So they typically just stay in Little Rock for the night and are able to have both ceremonies back to back. However, this can also be a con because it is asking students to have 2 days of ceremonies back to back. So Friday afternoon, you're at the Phi Alpha Induction Convocation. Saturday morning, you're at the big 3-4 hour long university commencement. So it does make for a very big weekend for our students who are both being inducted into Phi Alpha and who happen to be graduating with their BSW or MSW. Another pro is we no longer have to fight with other departments on campus to book the auditorium for a Phi Alpha induction and for the School of Social Work convocation. Because we have them on the same day, it's now much easier to get a space on one day as opposed to needing a space on 2 separate days. As I mentioned earlier, the combined ceremony now requires all faculty in the department to be in attendance, and all of us are in full regalia, so it feels very formal for the students. We've also found that this combined model has helped with recruitment for Phi Alpha. So maybe some BSW students are at the combined ceremony, they're graduating with their BSW, so they'll see the Phi Alpha induction ceremony that takes place at the beginning of the event, and they'll get excited about it. Like they'll see people, they'll hear about Phi Alpha and all the benefits that come with being a member and what a big honor it is. They'll see classmates, getting their certificate, getting their pin up on stage, and then when they come back for their MSW, they will decide to join Phi Alpha because they learned more about it through sitting through it and experiencing the induction at this combined ceremony. So then when these BSW grads come back as MSW students, and a lot of them do, a lot of students who go through our BSW program do come back to us for our MSW, and so now they'll have seen a Phi Alpha induction, be even more amped up about joining, so that during their MSW they will join Phi Alpha. So I think it's helped a little bit with recruitment. There's also a professional photographer present because it's 2 ceremonies in one, and we would typically always have a photographer for our School of Social Work convocation. Now that photographer's there and can get photos of the Phi Alpha students as they're being inducted, which is a nice little perk. And then the reception afterwards, that's great because our Community Advisory Board sponsors that. Our Community Advisory Board has always sponsored a reception for our School of Social Work convocation ceremony. So now that Phi Alpha inductions combined with that, Phi Alpha inductees get the added benefit of being able to participate in that reception as well. So a little bit about our Phi Alpha induction and inductee numbers over the years. You'll see on these slides that we've experienced a dip. In 2018, so my first year here on campus as co-advisor for the new Delta chapter, we inducted 42 students into Phi Alpha. Our induction ceremony was huge. In 2019, it was 40 students, so not much of a difference. But I mean, look what happened in 2020. We went down to 16 students. So the way our chapter typically works is in January, we'll pull the reports, find out who is in our top 35% of students, and then we'll send out the invitations to join based on that. So when we pulled that report in January 2020, we probably sent the invitations out to join in February-ish, maybe early March of 2020. And then obviously that's right around the time COVID hit. So we think that the onset of that pandemic during that time really caused us to see this dip. I mean, it was a difficult time for everyone. Folks were losing jobs. We were pushed onto virtual learning. And we think this explains our drastic decrease in Phi Alpha members. And since then, it's kind of stuck around that number. You'll see in 2021 we went up to 19. 2022 was 21 students. 2023, 21 students. 2024 we only had 17. And then in 2025, this most recent year, we were back down to just 16 students. But I do want to note that this academic year, 74% of our social work students at UA Little Rock are online campus students. And I've been pretty shocked by that number. 74% is a lot. So more than half of the students in our School of Social Work are online campus students. And this isn't just Phi Alpha students. This 74%, I'm referring to all School of Social Work students at the University of Little Rock. So across our BSW and MSW programs combined, 74% of them are online students. And I think that is also keeping this number low. I don't know, to me it just seems like online students maybe feel a little bit of a disconnect from some student organizations on campus because they're not here, they're not surrounded by their classmates and peers, they don't actually meet the faculty, and all of our online classes are asynchronous. So they don't require synchronous participation, they don't require Zoom meetings. Our online students are never required to come to campus. So it really is just asynchronous learning on Blackboard. So I think that they're feeling a bit of a disconnect. So maybe they're not as motivated to join student organizations and honor societies like Phi Alpha. And that's unfortunate that we're down so low now compared to where we were pre-COVID in 2018. All right, y'all. Well, that is pretty much our induction ceremony at the new Delta chapter in a nutshell. So now I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about our chapter sustainability project. Okay, so to talk a little bit more about the sustainability project that the new Delta chapter of Phi Alpha did in the spring of 2025. So I believe it was December of 2024 that the treasurer of our chapter, Hannah, put together a chapter grant application to request some funds to do a sustainability project. So we all know that sustainability focuses on creating a livable future for everyone. And it is the practice of meeting present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet those needs. And social work and sustainability have similar goals as they both seek to create long-lasting positive changes in the community, advocate for policy changes and practices that promote equity and access to resources, and really help to mitigate the effects that climate change can have on the vulnerable populations that we serve as social workers. So all of last school year, I feel like our School of Social Work really focused on sustainability, and that was just something that was at the forefront of our minds last academic year. And our chapter's co-advisor, Morgan Lionberger, she received an internal sustainability grant to purchase a composter for the hallway in our School of Social Work. So our School of Social Work, it picks up the entire 4th floor of one of the buildings on campus. And it's really neat in that all of our faculty and staff offices are in one suite. And right outside that suite, all up and down this one hallway on the 4th floor, is all of our social work classrooms. So it's really nice that we're all combined in this central location. So outside of Phi Alpha, Morgan applied for this internal sustainability grant on campus, and she received it. She did that as part of the service and research work that she does as a social work faculty member. So when she received that internal sustainability grant on campus, she used it to purchase a composter to put in the hallway of the School of Social Work. And we chose to put it in the hallway so that staff, faculty, students, in the School of Social Work could all easily see it every day and could have access to it. And not only do we have access to it, but people on other floors in our building can come down to the 4th floor where we are, and they can use the composter as well. So here's a picture of it. It's actually really cute. And we named it Compost Malone. So some of you might be familiar with the musician Post Malone. So we thought it was a funny little play on words to name it Compost Malone. And I don't know if you can read it, but right below its name, it says Feed Me the Beats, B-E-E-T-S. And it's kind of funny because Post Malone is a musician, and you typically think of beats like B-E-A-T-S, but we put beets, B-E-T-S, because that relates to things you put in the composter to feed it. We also put little googly eyes on it, you can see, just to make it more fun and hopefully approachable for people to use. So it was this internal sustainability grant that Morgan got to purchase this composter that really made our Phi Alpha chapter want to do more around sustainability, and in particular around composting. So it was Morgan being able to purchase this composter that really spurred us, and particularly Hannah, our chapter's treasurer for the last 2 years, to submit a chapter grant application to the Phi Alpha office. And as part of getting this chapter grant, what we wanted to do was activities to promote the use of the composter on campus that we now had, to educate faculty, staff, students, and even folks out in the community that we work with, so such as our field instructors. We wanted to do something to educate them on composting, and we also wanted to tie in doing a canned food drive for a local community garden that does a lot of composting. So we applied for this chapter sustainability grant. We asked for, I believe it was a little under $800. And I'll show you as we go through this presentation what we purchased and did with that $800. But one of the main things we did is have a lunch and learn on April 21st of 2025. We brought a guest speaker to campus. His name was Reed Admire, and Reed has done a lot in the Little Rock community relating to sustainability and more specifically to composting. He used to teach gardening at a local elementary school, and he created a nonprofit, and he was the executive director of this nonprofit for a long time. It's called the Urban Food Loop Project, and the whole idea with the Urban Food Loop Project is to reduce food waste, to compost, and to really incorporate more sustainable practices into our daily lives. So we figured that Reed was a great person to bring to campus to speak to faculty, staff, and students, and to our field instructors about sustainability. So this event, we offered it in a hybrid format so that people on campus, we could all meet in a big conference room with Reed and hear the talk. And then we also offered it on Zoom as well, because as I mentioned during my induction ceremony talk, about 74% of our students are online campus students. So having this event in a hybrid format was really crucial if we wanted to get people, especially our students, to participate. Another thing we did with this Lunch and Learn on April 21st is that we provided CEUs for licensed attendees. So this helped increase participation for our faculty members and staff. Our faculty and staff, a lot of whom are LMSWs or LCSWs, they need CEUs. So by coming to the Lunch and Learn, they were able to earn 1 CEU. And we also advertise this to all the field instructors for our BSW and MSW students who are in internship, and that helps get a lot of them to come to So not only did they get to learn about sustainability, but they got that all-important CEU to maintain their license. And we asked everyone who attended in person on April 21st to bring at least one canned good that we could donate to Dunbar Community Garden, which is a local community garden about maybe like 2 or 3 miles from our campus. And they have a little free pantry located inside the garden that gets utilized heavily. So we collected canned goods to donate to Dunbar Garden. So on this next slide, you can see the flyer that we made to promote the Lunch and Learn with Reed Admire. You see it talks about a composting focus, advertises that one CEU credit hour, had the Zoom link, and then at the bottom it says please bring a non-perishable food item to be donated to Dunbar Garden's little free food pantry. And this flyer is really creative, I thought, and it was our Phi Alpha chapter officers, so our president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, who designed this flyer. I believe they used Canva to make it. I think it looks really good. And you will see here in a few minutes all the other flyers and posters they designed as part of this chapter grant focus on sustainability that we did last spring. So part of the $800 we received from the national office went towards paying Reed Admire an honorarium. I believe we gave Reed a $200 honorarium to thank him for preparing an hour-long talk on sustainability and for coming to our campus in person to do this presentation for us. So this here on the screen is a photo of all of the canned goods and food items that we got for Dunbar Community Garden. I believe it came out to about 24 food items that we were able to give the garden, and we really tried to focus on protein-rich options. So we were able to get peanut butter, nuts, oatmeal, canned chicken, canned tuna, chili. I believe there were some vegetables in there. So Dunbar Garden received all of this, and it was utilized and went pretty quickly out of their food pantry, out into the community. So next up, I wanted to show everyone other items we purchased with the chapter grant. So this stand, you see this black shelving, we were able to purchase the shelf to put items on. At the top, and I know it's kind of silly, it's a Halloween bucket. We did not purchase that Halloween bucket with the grant money. It was just a bucket we happened to have lying around in our offices. But inside that Halloween bucket, you'll see little brown baggies. Inside those brown baggies are compostable utensils. And we purchased those because so many students and faculty and staff as well will eat lunch on campus, in their offices, or in the classroom between classes, and they're always using disposable plastic forks that just end up in a landfill. So to combat some of that waste, we purchased a bunch of compostable utensils. So if a student or faculty or staff forget to bring utensils from home, they will hopefully use some of these compostable utensils as opposed to using plastic and throwing it in a landfill. Below that, you see 2 rows of these little gray boxes. What's in those gray boxes are collapsible silicone water bottles. And they're actually really cool in that they collapse. So students or faculty or staff can just throw them in their backpack and carry them around. And when you get to campus, we have a water filling station in our School of Social Work hallway, like right outside where all of our classrooms are, that students can take one of these collapsible water bottles, they can pull it open, fill it at the water filling station, and then hopefully stop buying plastic water bottles. Something that's really rampant on our campus is the fact that we have vending machines all over the place, and in many of our classroom trash cans, you see just plastic bottles everywhere, like plastic bottles of water, plastic bottles of soda. They always end up in the trash, as opposed to in our recycling bins, even though we have recycling bins on campus. So we really hoped that by being able to purchase these silicone water bottles and give them to students who may not be able to afford their own reusable water bottle, that we can hopefully reduce all the plastic bottles of water that are in the trash can in our classrooms. And then the last thing we purchased are these white buckets and lids. So these white buckets and lids are to be used with Compost Malone. And the idea is that students, faculty, and staff will take one of these white buckets home with them. They will collect food waste at their homes, so like coffee grounds, banana peels, vegetable scraps, and that they will collect it in their little white compost bucket, and then when they come back to campus, they will feed it to Compost Malone, and it gets turned into nice, rich compost that they can then put back in their white bucket and take home to use if they happen to do any home gardening. I know a lot of our faculty have been taking the nice soil that's coming out of Compost Malone. They've been taking it home to do their own gardening, which is really awesome. But even if gardening is not your thing, what we tell students is you can at least take a bucket home, collect your food scraps, and then dump it into Compost Malone, even if you don't want to take any of the soil home with you to put back into the ground. So as part of this chapter grant, our chapter officers created a bunch of posters that are now hanging up and down our hallway. And I wanted to show you some of these. So they look small on the screen, but we got them printed by Campus Printing Services into larger posters that are all up and down the hall. This one kind of serves dual purposes. It talks about the benefits of composting, and then it also advertises Phi Alpha, and hopefully we'll get some folks to join. It says why join. Like you could network with peers and professionals, you can enhance your resume, you can make a meaningful impact, like we're hopefully doing with this composting project. You can have access to scholarships. So it's hopefully serves two roles: one, explaining the benefits of composting, and two, promoting Phi Alpha membership. This next poster I think is really cute. It says feed me the beets, and there's a picture of Compost Malone on it, complete with the googly eyes and everything. Yeah, our student officers, we were fortunate enough to have the same group of officers, so the same president, VP, secretary, and treasurer for 2 years. These students joined when they were BSW seniors and served as officers. Then they came back the next year as advanced standing MSW students, and they were our officers last year as well. All 4 of them just graduated in May, so really sad to see them go because they were such an energetic and creative group. They really took it and ran with designing these posters. This next one is hanging right above Compost Malone in the hallway, and it is to be used as a guide of like what you can put in Compost Malone and what should not go in there. So for example, stuff that'll break down quick in the composter: noodles, cheese, leftovers, grains, fruit, pizza. Stuff that'll break down but will just do so slowly: meat, soft shells, small bones, coffee grounds, leaves. And then things you cannot put in the composter: big bones, filler paper, like things like avocado seeds, shells, tissues, and bioplastics. This next poster just shows the compost life cycle, how it goes from food to scraps, goes in the composter, becomes fertilizer, and will then help grow new produce, which becomes food, and the cycle continues. So it's a real simple way to just break down composting life cycle. And then this last poster, just a little worm that says give a scrap and help the earth. So just a little timeline of our chapter sustainability grant. So as I mentioned at the start, Hannah, our treasurer, applied for the grant in December of 2024. In February of 2025, we received the grant, and it was exactly $760. On April 21st, we had the Sustainability Lunch and Learn hybrid event with Reed Admire as our guest speaker. And then in May of 2025, so right before graduation, we submitted our activity report for the grant and kind of wrapped it up right before all of our officers graduated. So just a little update as I conclude my talk. As of September 25, so as of now, the use of Compost Malone is just something I wanted to talk about, and it's been surprisingly getting used pretty heavily. There was going to be a news story by the local news, local media about our little composting project, and people, like I said, a lot of faculty are actually taking the fertilizer and soil that comes out of Compost Malone, and they're using it at their homes and their gardens. So it's really neat that this is getting heavily utilized on our campus. And also the silicone water bottles have been a huge hit. In the photo I showed was taken right after we purchased them, and I can go, and we had, I forget how many we purchased, but we had like 2 shelves full. Now there's probably like 3 or 4 silicone water bottles left. So yeah, they've been very popular among our students, and it does seem to be helping reduce the amount of plastic water bottles that we're seeing in the trash cans in the classrooms, which is huge. And also we've been advertising Compost Malone and our buckets and water bottles and compostable utensils to other departments in this building. So the building that the School of Social Work in also has the School of Public Affairs, the Criminology and Criminal Justice Department. So there's a lot of other students and faculty coming into this building every day, and we want to invite them to come down and use the composter as well, because ultimately, like, that'll help all of us reduce this food waste and lessen our impact on the environment. All right, y'all. So I know that was a lot. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. And again, I'm really sorry I couldn't be here live on the Zoom with you today, but please reach out to me with any questions or concerns, or if you just want to talk about our induction ceremony or the composting efforts that we're doing, I would be happy to connect. All right, y'all. Thank you, and have a good week.